Hello and welcome to the first episode of
Amazeballs.
Today's episode is
Ghost Train.
All Aboard!
Hope you got your
tickets! The first episode of Amazeballs.
Yes.
I'm Austin and joining me is...
I'm Justin.
And we're going to be talking about the anthology series from the mid-'80s named Amazing Stories.
Yep, and man, they sure are amazing.
Right? I encountered these shows the same time you did, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Neither of us grew up with them.
No.
But we were hooked right away and blew through it.
Yeah, we definitely both grew up with, like, Stephen Spielberg stuff. Like,
and that's who this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The heart of the show most of the time. He wrote and directed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, his name's everywhere. So.
Exactly. So tell us a bit about the show.
It kind of just seems like a playground for them to just toss out ideas. Like a lot of the stories were actually written and directed by Stephen Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like him and his friends kind of just like throwing ideas out there and seeing what they think would test well for movies is like kind of the feel I got for it.
It reminds me of Tales from the Crypt a lot in that aspect.
Yeah.
You have a lot of guest directors and writers coming in.
Yeah.
It's an anthology series, so no two are ever the same.
Right. But you definitely see some things in this that like are inspirations, like testings for movies.
They show up in a lot of classic movies too. Like
yeah.
we'll get to those when we encounter them in the shows.
Yeah.
So it's Amazing Stories. It aired first in 1985 in September, and it ran for 2 seasons, 45 episodes in total.
Right. Yeah.
Today's episode, the one we'll be covering, is Ghost Train.
Ghost Train.
But before we get to that, let's talk about the opening to this show.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. it starts off okay. It's some cavemen gathered around a fire telling stories.
Right.
And so it's like, stories throughout history.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was gonna be like.
Yeah.
And then it like switches.
Then there's some, rotoscoped ghosts.
Yeah.
It gets pretty crazy. It flies through the Temple of Alexander.
There's a knight swinging a sword at you, and
there's spaceships too.
Yeah, spaceships. It's like covering,
really early 3D.
Covering like all the genres, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
And then it cuts back to the cavemen.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of just being the cavemen, it's like a family gathered around a fire watching a TV about the cavemen telling these stories.
Yeah, and it's sort of replaying how TV's the new medium that we gather around.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
that's where I spent most of my time with as like family time. We watched a lot of TV together.
As children of the 80s, I'm sure a lot of us did. But the episode's Ghost Train, and let's get right into it.
Yeah.
It opens on a sunny day with a car driving down the road.
Right. Very spooky.
Yeah. And there's something odd about this scene right away. Would you like to tell us?
Yeah. The very first scene, they're driving home, and through the sunroof of their car is the old man that I don't know where exactly they're picking him up from. I guess it's implied that it was like an old folks home.
They do say that, yeah.
And he's just standing up through the sunroof, like, got his arms spread like in Titanic.
Like he's never been to Vegas before.
Yeah. It was odd.
He seems so happy because they're going to the farmland.
Yeah. Not for the reason that you would expect.
So the characters right now are, there's a husband and wife, and one of their parents, I'm not sure if it ever says whose, but one of their fathers.
I'm pretty sure it's the dad.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because at the end, I'm pretty sure he calls the dad son.
Maybe I missed that. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But yeah, they're driving him home from like a retirement community or an old person's home, and one of the first lines is so creepy.
Yeah.
It's the old guy leaning forward. Oh, you're taking me back to the cornfield where I should have died 3/4 of a century ago.
Yeah, and he's just all smiles. He's so happy to be going back to this place where he thinks he should have died.
And that sounds creepy, but it's a Stephen Spielberg thing, so there's a lot of kind of bubbly orchestral music in the background that keeps it lighthearted.
The music is very whimsical throughout. It's good.
The entire series.
It's just like you're going through like a pleasant hike through the forest.
They do use the music often to imply danger where there is none, and we'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
So they arrive on the farm where the son has built a house for his family.
Right.
And this is weird.
Yeah, it's super weird.
It's a plot of land that's completely covered in grass in this giant blue farmhouse.
Yeah, it's enormous.
And then surrounding it is a field of nothing.
Yeah, it's a barren wasteland.
I mean, it's
there's
tilled.
There's like a small radius of grass around their house, and then it's just dirt.
Yeah.
Plowed dirt, and there's nothing growing in it. And as far as the eye can see, like in an aerial view of this kid running towards who he sees his grandpa get there.
And this is where the first real moment of confusion sat in. I mean, after the eerie dialogue.
Yeah.
The kid is running and yelling something as he's running towards the house. And at first I assumed it was Old Pa.
Yeah.
Old Pa.
And I heard him say that, and I immediately thought, I was like, oh, they are saying Old Pa. I thought they were saying Opa. And I'm just like, what the hell Opa is like some kind of term of endearment for old people back then?
And it turns out Justin was right. We looked it up on IMDb, and the name of his character is...
They were saying Opa.
Opa Globe.
His name.
Opa Globe.
His name was Opa.
So the kid wasn't calling him any sort of term of endearment, like Grandpa or Old Pa.
No, he was just running through a barren field going, Opa, Opa, Opa.
It'd be like running towards your grandpa, Stanley,
Yeah.
Stanley.
It was pretty weird.
So this is where the first kiss on the mouth comes in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these between family members.
Yeah, specifically just the kid. I don't think there's a kiss shared that doesn't involve that kid.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm not saying that's weird among like family
Yeah,
members.
I
just
it.
don't see it a lot on television.
Right, because I mean, you know that that's not really.
They were family for a week at
Yeah,
most.
they were like this kid knew those people and never saw them again. He had to kiss them probably several times.
Whatever. Hollywood. So it goes to the indoor of the house, and the mother's moving through the kitchen at a rapid pace, very hastily moving things around, doing no real cooking.
Right.
The pans are kind of disguised, so you can never see what's in them.
There's a chicken. You can clearly see a chicken.
Well, yeah, because the little kid's smacking it.
Yeah, the little that kid's a little shit. Like
he's not helping at all.
He's just going around like it's not enough that he's doing like the trope of like constantly asking questions. He's constantly asking questions while like picking hot pans off the stove and like setting them on the floor to fuck with his mom.
It's not that bad, but it's close. And the mother's talking very loudly about Opa, the grandpa, within earshot, and we can clearly see this because the frame
it skips
starts
to the
in his room.
In his room.
With him unpacking, and through the door, not 10 feet away, the
Open
mother's talking
door.
loudly.
Yeah, open
exactly.
door, and she's just like talking about him.
So we missed something in the car ride.
Yeah.
The grandpa, he says some pretty ominous things about his childhood. He says, I should have died and all that. And the dad's like, you can save those stories for the old person's home.
Yeah.
Don't say them around.
Yeah, don't say don't tell those to our kid because then he won't be able to sleep. And that's like a recurring theme, it seems, of like, hey, don't say this to this certain person.
So what's happening in the kitchen?
And also the spying.
Exactly. We haven't got to that.
Yeah.
No. So in the kitchen, the mother's talking to the son. He wants to take Opa on a walk in the fields, and she's saying he's too old.
Yeah, he wanted to learn where the Indian spot.
Yeah, and the kid's really frustrated. We find they moved from Chicago recently.
Yeah, after he also realized that kid hates his toys.
He throws a mini tantrum.
He's like, oh, come on, I never have anyone new to play with, and he's finally someone here. And she's just like, oh, you have your toys, and he just loses it.
Yeah.
Just screams, I hate my toys.
Really hates his toys.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And after he yells, I wish we didn't live here, I just wish we didn't move here, I hate it.
Yeah.
This is where the mom comes back in with, don't ever let your father hear you say that.
Yeah.
A lot of denial.
Yeah. She's like, she's like, makes a point, she like, grabs him by the shoulders, like, you promise me right now, you won't ever say that in front of your dad. He's like, okay, I won't.
This family talks really loudly with all the doors open and very unaware of their surroundings.
And the grandpa, who obviously heard this whole conversation, comes out and like gestures for the kid to come follow him. So he's gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
That's
they
the
go on a
next
walk.
scene. They go on a walk, and he tells them stories about the Indians.
Well, it's still daytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. for being a horror sci-fi fantasy anthology.
Yep.
We're still in the first
Also,
day.
haven't really talked about the train.
Well, that's what we get to next.
He did already, like, whenever he first got to the house, before the whole kid throwing a tantrum about his toys, the grandpa did ominously talk about how he loved their house, but he didn't like where they put it.
Yeah, that's right. He was measuring directions with his arms and pointing off into the distance.
He was very distracted about things. You don't really know what was going on.
Yeah, we're kind of led to believe that the grandpa might have Alzheimer's at this point.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So we get out into the field, and they want to look for arrowheads and where the Indian battles, quote unquote, were.
That's what he wanted to learn.
So he tells them a bit about the Native American history.
It was a pretty refreshing. Like I'm glad that he told it the way he did.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
It was pretty PC.
Yeah.
You're right. After that, we start to hear about the train. The grandpa finds some railroad ties.
Yeah,
some spikes.
they find something.
Yeah. Well, the boy, he doesn't know what he's found. He asks, "Is this something?"
Yeah, weird phrasing. There's kind of weird phrasing.
Well, it was a giant hunk of metal with 3 colors of glass in
Yeah.
it. It was obviously something.
Obviously something.
So they're walking through the field. They see a lot of rusty remnants of the railroad that used to run through there. And they find a railroad track, a piece of it that's discarded, broken, and kind of
next
thrown.
to like a broken down old shack.
Yeah. And we've seen this shack in one of the earlier shots when they first arrived on the
also, they're walking around in this field that's around their house that before was completely barren.
Wasteland.
Now, all of a sudden, there's vegetables. Everywhere.
Yeah. So, I don't know if just the plot around their house was for sale, and so it did get tilled. There were rows.
Like maybe there was a time skip. Maybe they just, like... more than likely, they just went on a walk, and this is like nowhere near where they actually live.
But that's what I'm saying. We see the shed from an earlier shot.
Yeah.
So it is the same field.
It's the same field, yeah.
So they find this railroad track, and the grandpa does something really odd.
Yeah.
At first, it seems like he's just leaning down to get a closer look, but he puts his ear to it, and he stays there for an uncomfortably long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
And he just, like, cut off the kid who was asking questions. He just, like, put his head down and he, like, closed his eyes. It was for, like, almost a good minute.
And this is where the music gets into a minor key, and the violins get a little more shrill, and the big timpanis come in. It's more ominous. And
and then he gets up, and, like, there's, like... 2 decrepit buildings, and like framed directly behind him is their house.
Yeah.
Like in between, it was a good shot.
And there's some dialogue at this point about how it doesn't look good.
Yeah, he like chuckled. The old man like chuckles to himself, and he says, "Tain't good this."
Yeah. So the next shot we get's inside, and it's in the grandpa's room, and he's telling the boy a story. And it starts off, he's telling about a young boy, the grandpa is. He's like, there was once a young boy, and he lived in this area.
They were playing with an old train set. And as, like, pretty much right as this starts, the dad comes up and just eavesdrops on what they're talking about.
He's standing there the entire time.
Like, the whole time. He already mentioned, like, hey, I don't want you telling this story to my kid at the beginning. He looks upset about it. I'm just like, you're the one choosing not to go in there and stop it.
Exactly. So
it's so weird.
Grandpa's telling the story, kind of in the third person we find out. He's like, there was a boy who fell asleep with his head on the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And...
he was listening to see if the train was coming, and he fell asleep.
Yeah.
That was the explanation.
And during the story, he falls asleep, and the guy driving the train, the engineer, sees him and pulls the emergency brake, which causes the train to crash.
And kills everyone.
Everyone on board. Everything on board. Yeah, and you find out he's the little boy.
Yeah, he was very emotional. It was a good speech. He even kind of like broke up a little bit towards the end. He started crying. And you could just be like... he needed to get help a long time ago.
Where it could be his senility kicking in.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe he hasn't talked about it.
The mixed up emotions, right? He may have kept it bottled up in all these years. So that scene ends, and we get like our first night, right?
Yeah, it becomes nighttime.
now it's finally time for the horror.
Oh, no, that's not the end.
Not at
The
all.
story ends with the kid going, "Were you that little boy, Grandpa?"
Mm-hmm.
And the grandpa was like, "Yeah, I was, and now the train's gonna come back for me tonight, and I'm gonna go away."
That's
and
right.
And the kid was like, "Well, when are you gonna come back? How long are you gonna be gone?" And he was like, "When I get on that train, I'm never coming back." And then the kid starts like crying, and they hug.
How could I forget how dark that was? Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
And
Some kind, like, obviously an analogy to death, but
Yep.
like a very strange one.
yeah, and we'll get into that when we start to discuss what we think the moral of the story was.
And honestly, whenever I was watching this, I was expecting it to be much scarier than it was.
Definitely.
And I thought the kid was going to get taken by the train.
Well, let's not get into that yet, because there's a couple more scenes till we find that clue.
Yeah.
But the next scene is the grandpa outside again, right? And it's nighttime. And he's got his 2 spray cans.
Yeah, he's spray painting the splash zone of like where the train's going to come in.
He's marking directly east to west.
Yeah, he's going over the satellite dish.
The parents are watching him through the window.
Yeah.
This is when they really start to get concerned. And
well, yeah, he's spray painting their house.
Yeah, he puts a big square. And the son is now exploring his room, and he finds the train ticket, right?
No, that's not it.
No?
The doctor comes.
Oh, okay.
The doctor comes. They're all outside, and this is where the doctor comes, and he's just starts asking them questions.
This is a really creepy doctor.
Yeah.
He approaches very aggressively.
Yeah. He was strange. He was just asking him questions about when the train's coming, how he knew the train was coming, what made him think that the train was going to stop for him, and that's where we get into a little bit more, I guess, backstory on this train.
And he said, "I heard it when I put my head to the tracks."
He's like, I heard it like I always heard it when I put my head to the tracks and knew it was coming. He's like, "Well, how do you know it's going to stop for you?" He's like, "Well, I have a ticket," and he pulls out this crumpled up piece of old paper.
It's not in any sort of protection.
Yeah,
not
it's
even
like
in a wallet.
75-year-old paper that's like almost in perfect condition.
My driver's license don't last 2 years without deteriorating.
Yeah.
And this wasn't even in a wallet or in plastic.
Nothing, just in his pocket.
So the doctor takes a bold step, even though he doesn't look like he's a danger to anyone,
Yeah.
even himself.
Just like all of a sudden the grandpa was talking and then he just like screams. He's like, "Oh, what was that? Did there a bug bite me?"
Yeah. And the doctor's injected his arm.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, just something to help you sleep."
Yeah.
And they put the grandpa to sleep.
Not yet though. First they get into like
Well, he's stumbly.
They really get into that really dramatic altercation scene. This is one of the weirdest shots to me that happened in the whole show.
It's one of the most visually interesting. A lamp gets knocked over.
Yeah, a lamp gets knocked over.
Does the classic spotlight on the wall.
So you see the kid, and the kid's like screaming, "No, stop, don't hurt my grandpa.
You're killing him.
You're killing him." And then behind him, you see an enlarged shadow version.
The silhouette.
Of, of the
doctor
and the dad wrestling down the old man after they just drugged him.
Yeah.
Interposed with the mom doing like weird,
just
like
kind of phoned in dialogue,
"Oh, we love you,
sorry,
like,
Dad,
just,
it's
like,
for your
holding
own
her hand,
good."
it cut to her, and each time she was like in some kind of ridiculous nervous pose.
She's just very blustered and bird-like.
Never really does
repeating
anything.
a word over and over, kind of running around the room with her head cut off.
Yeah,
chicken with its head cut off.
Doesn't do anything and just makes a bunch of noise.
So the kid's freaking out still, obviously. Nobody's comforting him. It's very odd. They pick up the grandpa and move him into the living room.
Yeah, they go to put him in bed, but not even his bed.
No, they move him to an area where he says the train's gonna strike.
Yeah, to let him sleep.
That seems
odd. And then there's
odd.
another really weird moment where the doctor's like, "Hey, should we change him to his pajamas?" And the dad was like, "No, he'll be fine like that. You should leave." And he's like, "No, really, I think we should change him to his pajamas to get better circulation." And the dad just like, "You need to leave!"
Yeah, and he gets really angry.
And he just gets like really angry, and the doctor just like walks up to him and he's like, "You don't really believe that." And I'm just like, is him where did you pull that from? He's just mad.
Yeah, we had a big altercation. You drugged my dad. So the family goes to bed. Actually, the mother and father, they go to bed without any sort of interaction with the kid. He just goes to his room and lays down with his head on his toy railroad tracks.
He's looking at the ticket. Took the ticket from the grandpa, or and was just like holding it up to light, looking at it because it
And-
was old and cool looking, I guess.
This is why you were saying you expected them to take the kid and kind of take a dark twist, because he had the ticket and he matched the age.
Yeah,
of the grandpa.
they like whenever he was going over the backstory, he made a point to talk about how they were the same age.
Yeah.
Like that whenever this happened to him, like whenever he caused the train accident, he was the same age that the boy was. And there was a lot of juxtaposition that
There's a lot of metaphor in the shots.
yeah, and I was just like, oh man, they're gonna the train's gonna come, and because this old man's drugged out and can't board his train, that they're gonna take the person who has the ticket,
Right.
and what matches the age of when he was supposed to die.
That
I
would have been a
guess.
much more Tales from the Crypt
Yeah,
sort of ending.
yeah, that's what I was expecting.
So what really happens is the boy has his head asleep on the toy train tracks. The grandpa's drugged on the living room couch. The mother and father are in there.
Barely.
Yeah. And they hear the son wakes up. He hears
Yeah,
a train
yeah.
coming. And immediately it's loud. And the
And
house starts shaking
obviously
right
a
off the
train.
bat. Yeah.
Yeah, and the parents are just like, shut up.
Well, he goes into their room, yeah.
Yeah, it's the classic trope of like the kid has parents that just don't believe anything that's happening, regardless of the evidence.
So as the house shakes more and more, they wake up and they go to the living room. But they just stand there and sort of blankly stare at the window with the light coming through it
Right.
and the noise. And they stand there for a good solid 2 minutes.
Dad just gives like this throwaway reaction, like, "Oh no, oh my god,
And
oh my god, no."
they literally don't move until the floorboards are jumping a foot in the
Yeah,
air.
that's whenever the mom finally starts screaming and she finally reacts, and it's an overreaction. But I guess like she was in shock up until now.
And this train has been coming forever. It has been roaring
It's
towards
either
the house.
slow as hell or gives the most warning ever that there's a ghost train coming
Well,
through your house.
it's a phantasmal force. Maybe that's like its calling card is right as it appears from the grave. It just scares the hell out of you.
Yeah,
But it finally hits the house. It smashes through the wall.
yeah.
And the grandpa wakes
It
up.
looks great.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
the train coming through the house it's a great little piece of.
It's not a
of-
miniature.
of,
It's like a full set.
of-
As the
and-
house rattling apart, it looks
And
great.
yeah, I mean it looked good. If the story and stuff was a little shallow and nonsensical, but
Well, it's the first episode,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll let that slide.
Yeah.
Never judge a show by its first couple episodes. I say.
right. I just think it's worth mentioning that like it's like the whole show throughout always has really good effects,
Yeah.
like really spot on awesome effects. And some of the stories are amazing. Like a lot of them, like most of them are amazing. And some of them are amazing because they're so out there.
Yeah.
And just like I can't believe that they thought that this was going to like this was going to work.
Oh, and we'll get to some of those. They're
And,
my favorite.
I think it just kind of shows that like sometimes, especially in this time period, it was more about how things looked than the actual substance of what was going on.
At this time, we got a lot of bang for our buck for visual effects, and then it sort of happened again in the mid-90s, and you had movies like Independence Day, stuff like that, where it was 100% visuals, no story.
It's not to say that those things are bad. I think it's just this show has like such a weird distinction, and like sometimes the characters are really well developed.
Yeah, and it takes a while for storytelling to kind of catch back up to new technology,
Yeah.
because that's what people want to see.
Yeah.
So the train crashes through, the grandpa groggily kind of awakens, which he must be immune to all sorts of tranquilizers.
Right. Well, he did a lot of drugs.
I
in
guess
his
so.
time. Yeah, he's lived with that dark secret his whole life.
He's like Batman, it just
Yeah.
comes up every single
Yeah,
day.
he's Train Man.
Yeah. So, everyone on the train is dressed old-timey.
Yeah.
When did this train
The train
crash?
comes in. Well, he's like really excited. Like the grandpa.
Oh, he's
His
dancing.
reaction, like waving down the train,
Yeah.
and like the conductor like gives him a little wink.
In like early 20th century clothing, which
Yeah.
I guess is the time period. It would have
Yeah,
been like 1915.
75 years ago,
1910.
probably. Like I don't know.
Because
when-
this came out in 85.
Yeah,
The
close.
mom's handling it really well. She goes up to the window and the ghosts are putting their hands on the window and she's kind of putting her hands through on the other side.
Like tickets, who's got the tickets? And she just like screams, ticket, 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 ticket.
He totally ignores her. She runs around the room.
Yeah,
The now demolished living room.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
only destroyed half of it.
and like the dad just stands there dumbfounded, which I guess I mean, his.
The grandpa.
This is a true horror story towards the dad.
Yeah.
Because he built this house.
So the grandpa comes up and he's like, I have my ticket. He reaches, he doesn't have
ticket.
The boy has it.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, I have
grandson.
your ticket, old pa. And he gives it to him.
Oh, Opa.
Opa.
Yeah, he gets on the train. They say their goodbyes. There's a lot of tears. It's a very emotional goodbye.
Very emotional. Not with the parents.
No.
The parents are still dumbfounded in shock.
Very one-dimensional characters there. So 2 engineers get off towards the end, and they're thrown in there to kind of lighten the mood after this dark, emotional moment.
Yeah.
They rummage through the fridge. One of them's like, Mr. Coffee?
He sees a coffee machine for the first time, and then he realizes it.
Then these are ghosts, but they're totally corporeal, like flesh and blood clothes. Don't look scary, like living people. They rummage through the fridge and get some beers.
Sorry about your house. Couldn't have built it where the train comes through, and then he smiles.
Train pulls away, and another really good effect, like it pulls out of the house and continues for as far as we can see. And the last line,
throughout the whole show, we
Yeah.
forgot to mention this. Since the train shows up and it's like demolishing their house, they constantly mention how it's a good thing that they have insurance. Like, I think it's brought up like 4 times.
And the last line ties into that. It's
who's
our insurance agent?
And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, really? Your house insurance covers ghost train?
Act of God, I guess. But I think this was just to lighten the mood.
I guess it's to give the audience some semblance of, oh, don't worry, everything's gonna be fine.
Credits. So, what I kind of got from this episode was a positive look towards assisted suicide, almost. And I know that's drawing some long
I guess
conclusions.
I can kind of see that. I can kind of see that.
I don't know. It was weird.
He was. I mean, obviously, him getting on that train was dying.
Yeah, definitely. He said he was never coming back.
Like,
he did say to the grandson, "I'll see you in 100 years."
Yeah, and the grandson said, "I'll see you in 100 years too."
But I don't know. It was a first shot at this show.
It was definitely amazing in that it wasn't what I was expecting. The title "Ghost Train" and the story. I mean, it was technically a ghost story, but the least scary ghost story I've ever heard. It looked great, but their reaction to it was so strange. The kid was like super excited.
Yeah.
The dad.
The whole time the
like,
train was coming, the kid was like looking out the window,
like
jumping
up and down, like smiling, along with the grandfather. And then like the parents were just, of course, struck dumb. Like they literally didn't say anything or just ran around squawking.
So we were led to believe that the grandpa was becoming senile and imagining all of this. But he was so solid in his convictions. Like, he knew this was happening just because he heard it and knew he was going back to that place. Like, in the beginning, he said, "Could you drive me to where it happened?" And that's where we get the big reveal that, I built it on the plot of land. I own it, the son says. Which
kind of is fucked up. Did the son go out and buy this piece of land? Like, this specific, very specific piece of land? Or was it a coincidence?
And do you think the grandpa requested to get out of the old person's home on this date because it was the anniversary?
We don't know. Was it the anniversary or was it just some random night?
I don't know. So it would happen
Maybe
whenever
it
he went
happened
back.
because he was there.
Totally. Yeah, that's amazing.
Maybe, like we could look at it, like we don't know if this was something that he talked about his whole life.
He did at the nursing home.
A very traumatic thing to happen to a young child.
So that was our first episode. Hope you guys liked it. That was Ghost Train.
Ghost Train. The next one is a little bit different.
It's a lot more quirky.
Little, I mean a lot.
It's a polarity shift.
Yeah.
No more death.
Yeah. It's also amazing though. That's the tie-in.
So it's a quirky kind of high school sci-fi drama, I'd call it.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
It's The Main Attraction.
The Main Attraction. So try and find that, guys, and listen next time. This is Amazeballs with Austin.
And Justin.
Hope you liked it.
Yep.
Bye.